of Crystal Cross Medical Center, Abuja echoed with the steady beeping of machines and the soft shuffle of nurses' shoes. In room 407 lay Michael Bako, once the ruthless CEO of the Bako Group, one of Nigeria's most powerful real estate empires. For a year he had been trapped in silence, his body broken by an accident. No one dared to investigate too closely. Where others saw only a lost cause, Nora James, a young nurse with weary eyes and unshakable compassion, saw something more. Every morning she entered this sterile room, smoothing his sheets, wiping his forehead and whispering, "Good morning, Mr. Michael. Another day, we're still here." Her colleagues mocked her dedication. "Why waste your time on a man who will never wake?" they teased. But Nora's reply was always the same. "Even if he never opens his eyes, at least he'll know someone cared." Behind her soft smile was a woman carrying silent battles. As a single mother, she worked long shifts to provide for her 6-year-old daughter, Amara, and her aging mother, Mama Evelyn. At night, she dragged herself home to a small apartment in Garki Area 1, where Mama Evelyn waited at the door with warm eyes and worried words. "Nora, you are wearing yourself thin." But Nora never faltered. She believed in kindness, in the quiet power of showing up even when the world had turned its back. And though she didn't know it, deep within Michael's fractured mind, her voice pierced the darkness. Michael had once been feared in boardrooms. His sharp words could end careers. But now, stripped of power, he was nothing but a still figure, kept alive by tubes and wires. His family had long abandoned him. His stepmother, Madame Clarissa Bako, came once only to sign papers and leave without a glance. His father, Chief Bako, too weak to fight his new wife, had vanished from his bedside. Everyone forgot Michael, except Nora. And then one quiet afternoon, as she hummed a lullaby she often sang to Amara, Nora felt the faintest twitch against her palm. She froze. His fingers. They had moved. Her heart leapt, but her lips whispered only one trembling promise. "If you are still in there, Michael, I will not leave you, I promise." In that sterile room, an invisible battle began. The war between despair and hope. And for the first time in a year, hope was winning. Life outside the white walls of Crystal Cross Medical Center was no kinder to Nora James than the life she lived inside. Every evening, after wiping Michael's forehead and whispering her daily encouragement, she stepped out into the bustling streets of Abuja. The scent of roasted corn and fried akara filled the air, but Nora rarely had coins to spare. Her wages barely stretched far enough for rent, food, and the endless bills that weighed her down. At her small Garki Area 1 apartment, Nora's mother, Mama Evelyn, waited faithfully at the door. "You look tired, my daughter," she said each night, wrapping her in a gentle hug. Her voice carried both love and worry. Nora would smile faintly, hiding the heaviness pressing on her chest. "I'm fine, Mama. How's Amara?" Inside, little Amara would come running with crayons in her hand, her eyes bright. "Mama, look what I drew today," she would beam, holding up crooked hearts and stick figures. In those moments, Nora's heart swelled. Her daughter was her anchor, the reason she endured sleepless nights and relentless work. Yet the struggles never stopped. School fees loomed. Medicine for Mama Evelyn's failing joints was overdue. Nora sometimes ate less so Amara could eat more. At the hospital, whispers followed her. "Why waste so much time on that man? He doesn't even know you're there." But Nora only shook her head. "Even if no one else believes, I do. She never told them that caring for Michael gave her strength, too. Speaking to him, this silent man who never interrupted, never judged, made her feel less alone. Sometimes, she whispered at his bedside, I wish someone would care for me the way I care for you. Her words lingered in the air, unheard, or so she thought. But deep within the silence of Michael's fractured mind, her voice was a lifeline, a soft glow breaking through the endless darkness. One night after another exhausting shift, Nora returned home late. The power was out again, and the small apartment was lit only by a flickering lantern. Amara slept peacefully on a mat, while Mama Evelyn sat awake, her hands busy mending a torn dress. She looked up and said quietly, Kindness always returns, my daughter. You may not see it now, but one day it will. Nora lowered herself onto the floor, resting her head against her mother's lap. Her eyes burned with unshed tears. She wanted to believe those words, but life had given her little reason to. Still, when dawn came, she walked back to room 407 at Crystal Cross, humming softly as she adjusted Michael's sheets. To everyone else, it was just another morning. But for Nora, it was another chance to keep her promise. I will not leave you. And though she did not know it, her faith was stirring something within him. Room 407 was silent, except for the steady rhythm of machines. To the hospital staff, Michael Bako was still just a man suspended between life and death. But to Nora James, he was more than that. He was her patient, her promise, her daily act of faith. On this particular afternoon, Nora sat by his bedside, resting her chin on her palm. The exhaustion of long shifts weighed on her, but she refused to leave. With a soft chuckle, she began to talk, as she always did. You know, Michael, she said gently, the market women raise the price of tomatoes again. I think they conspire against me every week. She shook her head, smiling at her own joke. If you were awake, maybe you'd give them one of those sharp billionaire looks that could silence a whole room. Her words filled the quiet, a melody of resilience. Then, as she reached for a towel to wipe his forehead, something happened. His fingers twitched. Nora froze, her breath catching in her throat. Michael, she whispered, leaning closer, her eyes wide. For a moment, she thought she imagined it. But then, there it was again, a faint movement, deliberate, real. Her heart pounded. She squeezed his hand gently, her voice trembling. If you can hear me, Michael, move your fingers again. The machines hummed. Seconds felt like hours. And then another twitch, stronger this time. Tears filled Nora's eyes as she pressed her free hand against her chest. Oh my God, and you're in there, you're really in there. She wanted to scream for the doctors, but fear held her back. What if they dismissed it as a reflex? What if they told her she was clinging to false hope again? Instead, she stayed, whispering fiercely, You are not alone. I am here. I will not leave you. Inside Michael's broken mind, a spark flickered. In the endless darkness he had been trapped in, Nora's voice was a lifeline. He tried again, straining, fighting the weight that held him down. His hand jerked faintly in hers. Nora gasped, her tears spilling freely. This was no accident. This was the beginning. That night, she could not sleep. At her small apartment in Garkey Area 1, she lay awake while little Amara breathed softly beside her. Mama Evelyn whispered, What troubles you, my daughter? Nora clasped her hands tightly. Mama, I think he's waking up. Her mother's eyes softened with quiet faith. Then keep holding on. The seed you watered with kindness is ready to break the soil. At dawn, Nora returned to room 407, her heart thudding with hope. She leaned close, her voice trembling but steady. "Michael, if you can hear me, try to open your eyes." The room was silent. Then slowly, ever so slowly, his eyelids fluttered. And in that fragile moment, a miracle began. The news spread quickly through Crystal Cross Medical Center. The billionaire in room 407 had opened his eyes. Nurses whispered in hallways. Doctors called it a miracle. To them, it was a story of science and hope. But to Madame Clarissa Bako, it was disaster. In the lavish sitting room of the Bako family estate in Maitama, Clarissa swirled a glass of red wine in her manicured hand. For a year she had lived like royalty, her husband too weak to challenge her control, her children groomed as heirs to the empire. The world believed Michael Bako was gone, and she had ensured it stayed that way. But then her phone rang. A nervous voice crackled through the line. "Madam, he's awake." The glass slipped from Clarissa's fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Her face hardened. "What did you say?" "He opened his eyes, madam. The doctors say he's recovering, but he has no memory yet." For a moment, relief brushed her lips into a cruel smile. No memory. That was her only advantage. Still, fear twisted inside her. If Michael remembered the truth, that the accident was no accident, everything she had stolen would crumble. She clenched her fists, her voice dropping to a hiss. "Then we must make sure he never remembers. Do you understand?" That night, as the hospital corridors fell silent, a figure dressed in black slipped through the shadows. A syringe glinted in his gloved hand, filled with a drug meant to still Michael's heart forever. He pushed open the door to room 407. But fate had other plans. Nora James, exhausted from her shift, had returned to fetch the sweater she had forgotten. As she stepped inside, she froze. A man loomed over Michael, syringe poised. Her instincts surged. Grabbing the nearest object, a metal tray, she swung with all her strength. The tray struck his arm with a sharp clang, sending the syringe clattering to the floor. "Help!" Nora screamed, her voice echoing down the corridor. The intruder cursed and fled before security arrived. Nora's hands trembled as she turned to Michael, still unconscious, unaware of how close death had come. Her heart pounded as she whispered fiercely, "Someone wants you gone, Michael, but I won't let them, I promise." In the stillness of room 407, one truth settled into her soul. This was no ordinary patient. His life was tied to something far greater and far more dangerous than she had imagined. And from the shadows of Maitama, Clarissa Bako was already plotting her next move. Days passed after the attempted attack in room 407. Nora James rarely left Michael Bako's side, her protective presence like a shield. She had sent Amara and Mama Evelyn to stay with relatives in Guagualada, fearing for their safety. But though her heart ached for her daughter, she knew Michael's survival depended on her courage. Michael's eyes were open now, but his mind was clouded. He could speak only in fragments, his once commanding voice now weak and unsteady. The doctors called it temporary memory loss, a common aftermath of a long coma. They urged patience, but for Michael, patience felt like prison. One evening, as Nora spooned broth gently to his lips, he frowned, his brow tightening. I saw a woman," he whispered, his voice hoarse. Nora leaned closer. "A woman?" His eyes flickered with pain as he pressed his temples. Her face, blurred, but her voice, sharp. She said, "You shouldn't have survived the accident." Nora's heart froze. The words mirrored her own fear. She clasped his trembling hand. Michael, listen to me. You were not just unlucky that night. Someone wanted you gone. Michael's breathing quickened. Images crashed through his mind. Screeching tires, the spin of his car, the sharp glint of city lights on wet roads. Then, a memory, sharper than the rest. Clarissa Bako's voice, cold and venomous. You act like this company belongs only to you. But soon, we'll see who holds the power. Michael jolted upright, gasping. She wanted me dead. Nora steadied him, her voice calm but fierce. Yes, but you are still here, and now we must be careful. If she suspects your memory is returning, she will try again. That night, Michael lay awake, staring at the ceiling. His empire, his name, his very life, everything was at risk, and the one person standing between him and death was not his father, not his so-called family, but a nurse with nothing to gain and everything to lose. Meanwhile, in the Bako estate, Maytama, Clarissa paced her gilded bedroom, her voice sharp as she spoke into the phone. He's remembering. If he recovers fully, we lose everything. Do you understand? Do whatever it takes. For Michael, the fog of memory was lifting, and with each fragment he recovered, he drew closer to a dangerous truth. But in Nora's steadfast presence, one thing was certain. He was no longer fighting alone. The following morning, Michael Bako asked for someone he had not seen in over a year. His father, Chief Bako. His voice was still weak, but his eyes burned with a fire that no coma could extinguish. Bring him here, he told Nora James, his tone firm despite the trembling in his hands. By noon, the old man entered. Room 407, his once proud shoulders were stooped, his egbada heavy on his frail frame. Guilt seemed to cling to him like a second skin. For a long moment, father and son simply stared at each other. You abandoned me, Michael said at last, his voice rough but steady. When I lay here, forgotten, you let them decide my fate. Chief Bako's eyes filled with shame. He sank into the chair beside the bed, covering his face with his hands. I am sorry, my son. I was a fool. I thought you would never wake, and I was too weak to fight your stepmother's grip. Michael's jaw tightened. Don't call her my stepmother. Call her what she is, the woman who wanted me dead. Chief Bako flinched, his hands trembling. Silence stretched heavy between them. Then, with a broken sigh, he whispered, I overheard her once, late at night. She was on the phone. I heard her say, make sure he doesn't come back alive. Nora, standing at Michael's side, felt the chill of those words crawl up her spine. Michael clenched his fists, fury boiling beneath his fragile body. So it's true, he muttered. The breaks, the accident. It wasn't fate, it was murder. Chief Bako buried his face in his palms. I thought it was jealousy, anger. I didn't think she would go this far, and by the time I realized it was too late. Michael turned away, his chest heaving. The betrayal was deeper than blood. Not only had Clarissa tried to kill him, but his own father had stood by, paralyzed by fear. Finally, he spoke, his voice low but fierce. If I stay here, she will finish what she started. I can't remain a sitting target in this hospital. Nora touched his arm gently. Where will you go? You're not strong enough yet. Michael's eyes hardened with resolve. I have a villa in Jabi Lake. Hidden. Secure. No one knows of it. I will recover there. And when I do, I will take back everything Clarissa stole from me. Nora's heart raced. The danger was real, but so was Michael's determination. She nodded. Then we'll go, and I will stay with you no matter what comes. That night, under the cover of darkness, Michael was wheeled out of Crystal Cross Medical Center. The city lights of Abuja flashed by as they drove toward Jabi. He gripped Nora's hand weakly, whispering, "I survived once, now I must rise again." For the first time, his fight for survival was no longer just for himself. It was for justice. The drive through Abuja's quiet night felt endless. Every passing headlight made Nora James tighten her grip on the wheelchair handles, her heart pounding with fear that someone might be following them. But when the car finally turned onto a secluded road by Jabi Lake, her breath caught. Before them stood a hidden villa, its walls tall and discreet, surrounded by trees that shielded it from prying eyes. It was nothing like the Grand Bako estate in Maitama. It was simpler, quieter, but it carried a sense of safety. "This place," Michael whispered, his voice weak but steady. "I bought it years ago. No one knows it exists, not even Clarissa." Nora wheeled him inside. The rooms were dim, dust-covered, but filled with strength in their silence. A private doctor and 2 loyal staff members, handpicked long ago by Michael, were already waiting. They bowed respectfully. "Sir, welcome home." For Michael, the word home felt strange. He was no longer the powerful billionaire who once commanded boardrooms with a glance. His muscles trembled when he tried to stand. His speech faltered, but as Nora adjusted his pillows and guided a spoon to his lips, he realized something he had never known before: the strength of being cared for. At night, Nora sat by his side, sometimes reading aloud, sometimes just humming the lullaby she sang for Amara. Michael would watch her silently, wondering how this woman, without wealth, without power, had given him more loyalty than his entire family. Meanwhile, in Maitama, Madame Clarissa Bako grew restless. News of Michael's discharge had not reached her. She still believed he was at Crystal Cross, vulnerable within her reach. When her spy reported that he was no longer at the hospital, her glass of wine shattered against the floor. "Find him," she hissed. "I don't care what it takes. If he is alive, my empire is at risk." Back in the villa, Michael's strength grew slowly. He practiced walking short distances with Nora at his side, each step shaky but determined. The man who once ruled through fear was now learning humility through weakness and resilience through pain. One evening, as the sun dipped low over Jabi Lake, Michael whispered, "Nora, I was taught that power is everything, that people only respect strength. But you taught me that kindness is greater than power. That is why I must live, not just to fight Clarissa, but to become a different man." Nora smiled softly, tears glistening in her eyes. "Then keep fighting, Michael, because the world needs that man." And in the stillness of that hidden villa, a new resolve was born. For weeks, the hidden villa by Jabi Lake sheltered Michael Bako as he struggled through slow but determined recovery. Each day, under Nora James's watchful care, his body grew stronger, his mind sharper. The fog of memory began to clear. But just as hope blossomed, danger crept closer. In her gilded chambers at the Bako estate in Maitama, Madame Clarissa Bako seethed. Her network of spies had failed to trace Michael's whereabouts. To the public, she still played the grieving stepmother, draped in designer lace, whispering to investors that she carried the family's burdens alone. But behind closed doors, her mask slipped. "How can a man vanish in Abuja like smoke?" she snapped at her informant. "I want him found. If he's alive, everything I built collapses." That evening, as Michael rested by a window overlooking the calm waters of Jabi Lake, he confided in Nora, I keep hearing her voice in my dreams. Clarissa, every word drips with hatred. She will not stop until I'm gone. Nora's eyes softened, but her voice was firm. Then we must be ready. She underestimates you, and she does not know you are no longer alone. Her words steadied him, but the truth lingered. Clarissa was powerful, connected, and ruthless. The next morning, Nora went to the local market to buy fresh food. As she bargained over yams, a black SUV rolled to a stop across the street. The tinted windows slid down, revealing Clarissa herself, draped in silk, her eyes sharp as blades. "Get in," she ordered coldly. Nora froze, her heart thudding, but refusing wasn't an option. She slid into the car, every muscle tense. Clarissa leaned close, her perfume heavy, her words venomous. "You are brave for a nurse, but bravery can get you killed. Leave, Michael. Walk away before your daughter pays the price." Nora's blood ran cold at the mention of Amara, yet she straightened, her voice steady, despite the tremor in her hands. "If anything happens to me or my child, I will make sure the world knows who is behind it. Michael will believe me, and when he rises, you will fall." For the first time, Clarissa's smile faltered. With a sharp gesture, she ordered the driver to stop. Nora stepped out, her knees weak, her spirit burning. Back at the villa, she found Michael waiting, worry etched on his face. She took his hand, whispering, "She knows, and she will strike soon?" Michael's grip tightened. His voice, though quiet, was resolute. "Then let her come, because this time I will be ready." The air inside the hidden villa at Jabi Lake grew heavy with tension. Michael Bako could feel fragments of his old self returning, slipping through the cracks of the darkness that had bound him for so long. Nights were restless, dreams filled with voices, boardroom arguments, flashing lights, and finally, the terrifying screech of failing brakes. One evening, as Nora adjusted his IV line, Michael jolted upright, clutching his head. His breaths came fast and ragged. I remember that night," he gasped. Nora's heart leapt. She steadied him, her voice urgent but gentle. "Tell me, Michael, what do you see?" His eyes stared blankly at the ceiling as images cascaded through his mind. The sharp rain pelting his windshield, the feeling of pressing the brakes and nothing happening, the car spinning, glass shattering, and then Clarissa's voice, cold and sharp, echoing from their last confrontation. "You act like this empire is yours alone. Soon we'll see who truly holds the power." Michael's hands trembled as fury coursed through him. "She did it. She ordered the accident. She wanted me gone." Nora's chest tightened. She had always suspected, but hearing it from him made the truth undeniable. She grasped his hand firmly. "Then we need proof. Without it, she will twist every word against you. You know how powerful she is." Michael closed his eyes, breathing heavily. Proof! His mind raced back to the heated argument in his office the night before the crash. He remembered slamming his fist on the desk, papers scattering. He remembered the look in Clarissa's eyes. Icy, calculated. He was certain there had been cameras in the office, recordings that might still exist. His eyes snapped open, sharper than they had been in months. The office! There must be records, security logs, recordings. If Clarissa touched anything, she left traces. That is where we'll find her weakness. Nora nodded, determination burning in her gaze. "Then we go after the truth. But we must be careful, Michael. If she senses you're remembering, she won't hesitate to strike again." Meanwhile, at the Bako estate in Metama, Clarissa sipped wine as she listened to her confidant on the phone. "He's regaining memory. the man whispered. Clarissa's smile froze, then twisted into a snarl. Then he has signed his death warrant, she hissed. This time I will finish it myself if I must. Back at Jabi Lake, Michael sat up straighter than he had in months. His voice, though still strained, carried the authority of the man he once was. Clarissa tried to bury me. Now I will rise, and when I do, she will face justice. For the first time since waking, Michael was not just surviving, he was preparing for war. The morning sun cast golden light over Jabi Lake, but inside the villa, the air felt charged with storm. Michael Bako now remembered everything. The empire he built, the ruthless deals that made him feared, and the betrayal that left him broken. Most of all, he remembered Clarissa Bako's venom. Make sure he doesn't come back alive. He sat straighter now, strength returning with every day of training. The once feared CEO had been humbled by weakness, but forged anew by pain and kindness. Nora James stood beside him, her presence a constant reminder that loyalty could come from the most unexpected places. Nora, he said quietly, his eyes fierce, it's time to end this. Clarissa thinks power is hers by right, but power belongs to truth, and we will bring it to light. Together, they began preparing. Michael's loyal staff unearthed security logs from his office hidden in encrypted files. The recordings revealed heated arguments between Michael and Clarissa, her greed laid bare, her threats unmistakable. Nora urged him to go to the authorities, but Michael shook his head. She owns too many of them. If we go public, the people must hear it first. Meanwhile, Clarissa plotted her final strike. At the Bako estate in Maitama, she gathered allies, promising them shares of the empire if they helped silence Michael once and for all. Her voice dripped with arrogance. He is weak, a shadow of the man he once was. I will finish what I started. But Clarissa underestimated the man she betrayed. One evening, as investors gathered at the company's headquarters for a quarterly briefing, Michael appeared. Frail but resolute, flanked by Nora and his loyal staff, he walked into the hall. Gasps filled the room. Some thought him dead, others whispered of miracles. Clarissa's smile froze, her wine glass trembling. My name is Michael Bako, he began, his voice steadier than it had been in months. For a year I lay in darkness, abandoned, betrayed, but I stand before you today because of one truth. Evil thrives only when good men do nothing, and I will do nothing no longer. He raised a hand and the recording played. Clarissa's voice filled the hall. Make sure he doesn't come back alive. The room erupted. Investors recoiled. Murmurs spread like fire. Clarissa's mask cracked, her face pale, her lips trembling with rage. Lies! She screamed, but no one believed her. Security closed in. Michael turned to her, his eyes steady. You tried to bury me, Clarissa, but you forgot. I am a seed. As she was led away, Nora slipped her hand into his. Tears filled her eyes, but her smile was steady. You did it. Michael shook his head softly. No, we did. You believed when no one else did, and now I will spend the rest of my life proving that I am not the man I used to be. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't just surviving, he was free.